Welcome to the Schools of Excellence podcast, where we transform everyday leadership struggles into powerful legacies that impact generations. I'm your host, Chani Wilshansky, a 20-year veteran of school leadership who has helped hundreds of school leaders achieve what many thought was impossible through our signature programs, School Leadership HQ and Enrollment Engine. With our battle-tested frameworks and blueprints, leaders have achieved 90% parent retention, 50% less staff turnover, 15% improved profit margins, and increased enrollment by 25%. My mission is simple: to revolutionize school leadership by elevating the skills, the habits, and mindset of passionate leaders ready to create lasting change. Join me as we build your legacy of excellence, one transformative conversation at a time. Hello there, and welcome back to the Schools of Excellence podcast. We are continuing our series on the 5 gears, and today we are diving into the staff retention gear. So over the last couple weeks, I kicked off the 5 gears to build and sustain a school of excellence, which is your leadership operating system. And in the first episode, I really explained high level what the 5 gears are, why I created the system, and why the focus creates freedom and relief and peace for you as a leader. So we did the enrollment gear so far and the financial health gear. Today, we're diving into the staff retention gear. And the surprising truth about staff retention in schools is that it's really not just about having great benefits or competitive pay or about I can hold on to my teachers or I've had the same staff for 10 years. Staff retention is about the retention ecosystem, right? Where every level of your organization plays a really important, vital role in keeping staff. So I was working with a director, we'll call her Michelle, and she was really frustrated because she had just lost her 3rd teacher in 4 months. And she really had the best pay in the area. She had good benefits, and she couldn't understand why people kept leaving. And so we dug into the data into what I call the retention intelligence framework. And the retention intelligence framework is a podcast episode that I did where I went super high level on this. You can click the link in the show notes and check it out. I also teach this in much greater depth inside of our School Leadership HQ program. And we discovered something fascinating. Her teachers were actually not leaving because they wanted more money. They were leaving because they felt really stuck, unsupported, and disconnected from the school's mission, which is why today's episode is so crucial. Because some of you are listening and you're like, I don't have a retention problem. Staff retention is not just about my staff are staying. That's not an indicator that you have a healthy culture just because your staff are there. We really have to understand how schools are transforming their retention rates by really understanding the ecosystem approach to retention. So if you remember in the first episode, when I started to explain the 5 gears, I explained that every single gear has 4 levels of work: strategic level work, implementation level work, support level work, and classroom level work. And every single person on the team is responsible for every single gear. No one gear is any person's single responsibility. So in the same way that enrollment is not just the enrollment specialist's responsibility, in the same way, staff retention is not just the director's responsibility. And financials is not just the owner's responsibility. Everyone plays a role in every single gear. So let's start with the strategic level, right? What does it mean to play at the strategic level in staff retention? So I want to be really clear and really brutally honest when it comes to the strategic level. If you're spending your time ordering supplies or covering lunches or whatever it is, you're not doing strategic work that actually drives retention. Because one of the things of actually developing a core retention strategy is, what is our culture strategy going to be? It's not just about having nice values on the wall or giving Starbucks gift cards. It's about having really clear systems for how values show up in daily work. So I'll give you an example of a client. We'll call her Jessica. She lived in the Midwest, and she was struggling with what I call toxic positivity in culture, right? Where everyone pretended that everything was fine, but underneath there was so much growing resentment. And so I helped her, as one of the systems that we have is we created with her culture checkpoints. And these are just like specific little moments in the day where her leadership team would just kind of assess, like, are we living our values? Simple things like, are we having honest conversations in our one-on-ones? Are we celebrating small wins authentically? Are we addressing challenges head on? Are we beating around the bush? And what happened was within 90 days, her staff started to say things like, everything just feels a little bit different. We're not just talking about culture. Now we're living culture. And another part of strategic planning that I'll share with you here, and again, I go this in really, really depth inside of School Leadership HQ, is the second part of strategic work with staff retention is professional development planning. And I'm not talking about random workshops. Like, I'm talking about creating a true systematic approach to growing your team and creating what we call career pathways, documented career paths for every role. Because it's not just about, we created, you need to build systems that support the career pathways. Monthly skill assessments. We do quarterly. There's certain monthly skill assessments. And then with teachers, we have something called the 6 performance keys. And these are the 6 core skills that every teacher needs to get good at and better at in order to be a teacher of excellence. We also recently developed the 4 forces of admin excellence. And these are the 4 key areas that your admin team needs to excel in order to be a true leader of excellence. And so when you have these diagnostic tools and you have these options to actually create clear metrics for advancement, now you're really working on retention, right? Now you're really making progress. So I was working with a director, we'll call her Sarah, and one of her teachers were Amy. And she had been thinking about leaving already for a while. She had been there for 2 years. She really felt stuck. And I sat down with Sarah and I was like, show her the career pathway, like show her the clear steps to move from lead teacher to curriculum coordinator. And what happened was Amy's entire energy changed. Like, she was like, oh my God, there's a future in this school. Right? Like, this is what I mean by the retention intelligence framework. This is a framework that I created. You can click the link in the show notes for the podcast episode. It's about having systems to monitor and predict staff satisfaction. That's why it's called intelligence, because it's not just about random data points. It's about pulling multiple points of intelligence to create this, right? It's not about annual surveys. We have to do regular pulse checks, monthly satisfaction metrics, clear career pathways that have action plans based on data. Think about it. By the time the teacher tells you they're leaving, it's way too late. The strategic work is about catching signs early and having systems that tell you when a classroom needs more support, when a teacher is overwhelmed, when your culture is telling you, attention, right? You need to pay attention. Now, here's where so many schools get stuck, right? It's like this very basic amateur level of thinking where they do a couple of these ideas, but nothing is built with systems, right? They have professional development, but it's not personalized. They track satisfaction, but they don't have clear follow-up protocols. And when you're really creating an excellent system, it requires all the pieces to work together. Real documented career pathways, personalized growth plan, regular skill building opportunities. That is how you build a culture of excellence. That is how you build phenomenal retention. And so I hope you're taking a moment to pause for a second and think like, whoa, 1 second. Like, I thought I have amazing retention because nobody leaves, but we're not doing all of these things. Like, how many more opportunities are there inside of the center, right? And inside of your staff as well. And it could be certain people should be actually moved out. 100% retention does not mean you're a good school. It actually means that you're a leader who's terrified to challenge the status quo. Like, people should be self-selecting out at certain points in the journey because you're developing and you're growing. And there are certain people that are not going to want to go. And there's nothing wrong with that person. Not every single person wants a life of consistent growth. Some people are so happy to stay where they are in their career and they grow in other areas of their life, right? They're choosing to grow in their health, in their wellness, in their mental health, in their marriage, in their children, in their relationship with their parents. Like, there's so many buckets of life to grow and pursue and become better at. And not every person wants to do it in their career. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that you have to keep that person in your business, right? And not every business is a business that is looking at career pathways and growth opportunities and all of these things. And again, nothing wrong with that. You have to have a sober conversation about what is actually important to you and do you really want to do this? We're not growing and excelling in every bucket of our life in every single season. There are seasons for things. And sometimes people are in a season where they're like, I don't want to grow. I don't want a career pathway roadmap. Like, I want to be exactly where I am right now. I'm growing in other areas. I'm raising, 3 young kids under the age of 5. Like, this is where I'm growing. I'm growing as a mom. I'm learning how to be patient. I'm learning how to not lose my cool. I'm learning how to work more cohesively with my partner so that, we don't don't trigger each other when the kids cry. Like, that's what we're learning how to do right now. And that's where I'm growing. And my job is the stability, and I don't want to be pushed, and I don't want to be, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. And I know that every single one of you are listening, and we've all had seasons like that of just leave me alone. Let me come in. Let me do my job. Let me leave. Leave me alone. I've got enough going on in my life. I get it. But the thing is that if you are a growth-oriented school and you have growth as one of your values and you're constantly in the pursuit of excellence, that's fantastic. But then it's also remembering, like, have we over-indexed on it? We're like, I always have to grow. I always have to develop. No. There's seasons. Sometimes you're growing the business. Sometimes you're maintaining the business. And again, that's a whole separate conversation because I want to focus on retention here. So that's the strategic level. Let's talk about where the rubber meets the road at the implementation level, right? This is your directors turning all your strategic plans into daily action, right? Into daily action. So we had a director that I was working with. Her name is Rachel. We'll call her Rachel. And she was getting frustrated because she had all these great ideas, right? One-on-ones, costume observations, team meeting, whatever it is. But she just kept saying, I can't do it. Something else urgent came up. A fire came up. This thing came up. I'm going to get to it. 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 And I know this sounds familiar because here's the thing about one-on-ones and classroom observations and gratitude and all of these things. You can't just say, I need to do one-on-ones. You have to ask, what is the system for consistent one-on-ones? Where am I putting it in protected profit blocks? What is my follow-up system? Is it important enough for me to actually put this in my calendar? So I want to talk about going back to Michelle, right, who I'd started the podcast with. So she was in charge of staff retention, not in charge. She was in charge of the implementation level of staff retention. And every Monday, she blocked 3 hours for one-on-ones. And every conversation had a specific beginning, middle, and end. And we have an entire framework for how to run one-on-ones inside of School Leadership HQ. We have something called the Growth Dashboard, where she's able to document specific notes that come up in the conversation. So it doesn't just disappear into the abyss. It actually becomes an action item, right? So when a teacher says something like, I actually need help with curriculum planning, it's not like, oh my God, I'm going to stop everything that I'm doing right now and help you with curriculum planning. No, the only reason why someone stops whatever they're doing or changes their entire plans to do that is because they have no idea how to actually create systematic follow through. Someone told you something, great. You hear it. You process it, you put it into your calendar for the next time you're going to review it and actually create the time for how am I going to help this teacher with curriculum planning? Stop putting Band-Aids all the time. Take the time to actually put it in. But we don't do it because you don't have a calendar system, right? This is what we teach inside of School Leadership HQ. It's called the 5-gear calendar system. It's knowing how to put these things into practice, okay? So one of the things that happened in the implementation level as well, specifically with Michelle, is meeting frameworks, right? Where she was finding that most of her communication with staff was like announcements, but it wasn't really moving her team forward, right? It was just like bringing everyone together. Let me tell you all the stuff that are going on. Let me vomit on you and all these things so that I know that I told you guys already. And that's not how meetings work, right? We need to understand the different kinds of meetings. There's an entire meeting blueprint inside of Leadership HQ. And it's understanding like, okay, when I'm meeting with them, this is the agenda. When I'm doing curriculum, this is the agenda. When I'm doing one-on-ones, this is the agenda. When I'm doing a performance review, this is the agenda. There's different kinds of meeting. You can't do a giant mashup burger and be like, great, I did everything. And now, oh my God, 2 weeks later, she didn't implement anything. You vomited all over her that she's still cleaning the vomit from 3 weeks ago. Like, that is not how we do staff retention. That is not how we do conversations. But the reason why we don't is because we're running, we're rushing, we're in urgency, because we don't understand that these are the 2 gears we're working on now, not the other 3. Those 3 are in maintenance mode. Now we're trying to improve the staff retention gear, which means I have to give it the time that it needs. And I need the systems to build it. And again, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. This is why people invest in School Leadership HQ, to be part of the program so that they can have access to the systems, to the checklists, to the processes, so they can implement them inside of their center. So what's the next level of work inside of the 5 gears? The support level. So I'm going to tell you about another client of ours. We'll call her Danielle. And her teachers were so frustrated. Morale was low. She couldn't figure out why. And so I worked through the retention intelligence framework with her. And we actually discovered something really interesting. It wasn't the big things that were causing problems. It was like the small daily friction points that her admin team were supposed to be managing, and they weren't. They were abdicating the responsibility. And those daily friction points were actually causing such frustration and resistance resentment with the staff. And so I spoke with her admin team about understanding how to do scheduling, right? And how to do proactive management of daily friction. And we have something called the coverage champion plan. And this is where team members don't just react to callouts. They have systems to prevent coverage chaos, right? They maintain a substitute pool. They track patterns in time off requests, and they create buffer in schedule for unexpected changes. And so they have an entire coverage system. And we teach that inside of our program. You can download that blueprint and actually build that inside of your center so that you don't have daily friction points, or you have a lot less of them. So another thing outside of the admin level is resource readiness, right? Your admin team should be the ones that are ensuring teachers have what they need before they need it. And I'm not just talking about supplies. Resource readiness is knowing like this teacher is going to need these questions answered in order for them to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And when teachers are constantly needing to come in and be like, I don't know what to do here. I'm not sure what to do here. I'm not sure. That is a failing on the admin level part of not creating the right resource readiness for their team, right? Because waiting for the teachers to constantly ask for support or ask for what they need is not a good recipe for retention. Now, I'm not saying that teachers can never ask for what they need. Of course, teachers should ask, but there should be some basic guideline of resource readiness where it's like, okay, here are the things that you're going to actually need. Very similar to like if you're doing a construction job, right? And we're doing construction on our house, which is why I share a lot of construction examples. So they're demoing the girls' room because it was water damage. So they had to, demolish a whole bunch of things inside of the room. And we had to prep the room for demo, resource readiness, right? We had to empty out all the closets. We had to take off all the picture frames. We had to all the stuff, right? So we're doing resource readiness. So when they come, they're ready to do demoing. Now, that doesn't mean that he still didn't have questions for me and there still wasn't other things that we had to take care of course. But can you imagine if he came to the demo job and all the closets still had clothes in them and all the beds still had linen on them and the walls were all covered with picture frames? It's like, you didn't even try to prepare for me, right? Like you gave me no resources to work with. So, and this is what's happening in schools all the time. Like leaders are not preparing and creating resource readiness for their teams. And it's causing a ton of resentment. So let's talk about the final level of work in retention, the classroom level. And I want to start, by sharing something that's, quite shocking sometimes for people is that your strongest retention work actually happens peer to peer, teacher to teacher, right inside your classrooms. So I was working with a school. They had 2 pre-K classrooms right next to each other. One room had kept the same teaching team for 3 years, and the other could not keep teachers longer than 6 months, right? Same pay, same benefits, same leadership, completely different outcomes. And the difference is classroom culture and team dynamics, right? So here's what classroom level retention actually looks like. It's not just, you guys have to collaborate more, whatever. No, we teach inside of Retention Intelligence Framework, teaching partnerships. It's actually partnering people based on strengths and season of life. It's actually helping understand like this lead teacher might be amazing at circle time, while this teacher has a gift for transition songs. This person needs a lot of rigidity and structure, and this person is more flexible and adaptable. So let's put them together. That's what it means to understand teaching partnerships. Another thing that we teach inside of the classroom level is what I call rituals. These are small daily things that build strong classroom cultures, right? Where the teachers actually learn how to get along with each other. They learn how to tolerate their differences. They learn how to assume best intent. These are such important things that you can't do for them, right? They have to create the ritual, but you can set the tone and say, one of the ways to create a great classroom culture is for the two of you to have a ritual of connection. Again, think about a marriage, right? Not saying that classroom teachers are like a marriage, but they are very similar in that way. You guys spend a lot of time together. Rituals are one of the most powerful ways to keep connection and relationship alive inside of a long-term relationship, right? And you hope that the teachers end up being some form of a long-term relationship. Like, we want you to make it through the year at least, but hopefully longer than that, right? If they stay. Rituals of connection, rituals of meeting with each other at specific times, rituals of small bids for connection. Like, these are such fundamental components of any relationship. And we forget how critical this is to the lifeblood of our staff. And so whenever I talk about this concept, I always get like eye-popping eyes where people are like, the staff are responsible for the staff retention? And I'm like, yes, every single level of leadership is responsible for every single gear. So how do the teachers contribute to staff retention? We have to partner them correctly with their strengths. We need to teach them how to create rituals. We need to teach them how to communicate with each other. We need to teach them how to have difficult conversations and not push things under the rug, right? These connection points create such strong classroom partnerships where there's peer support, where there's real collaboration, where there's daily practices and rituals that build strong teams. Okay, let's bring this all together. Whether you're working at the strategic level, the implementation level, the support level, the classroom level, retention isn't about one thing. It's about building systems that work together to create an environment where teachers want to stay and grow, right? Want to stay and grow. So if you are ready to transform your staff retention, I really want to invite you to take 2 action steps. Firstly, I want you to download the 5 Gears diagnostic so you can actually see where you're scoring in staff retention. So you can go to schoolsofexcellence.com. And then I also want to invite you to book a profit and growth call. And this is where we share with you a little bit more about our Leadership HQ program and also help you understand your roadmap for growth inside of your center. School Leadership HQ is where we work hands-on on implementing all of the systems, the entire ecosystem, from building your one-on-one framework to creating your mentorship programs, to creating career pathways, to creating recognitions programs that actually work. All of these things are systems that are already designed inside of School Leadership HQ. You get to plug and play into these systems and actually create sustainable growth inside of your center. So again, go to schoolsofexcellence.com to check out the diagnostic. And next week, we're going to dive into the parent retention gear. And I'm so excited for that. All right. Thanks so much for joining me.